great people. My name is Dotun Roy, and welcome to Hot Mic, where we dissect trending topics and human angle stories in Nigeria. Here, we rub minds, we share opinion and possible recommendations about these trending topics. Today, we are going to be looking at implications of negative attitude of citizens towards federal government's new policies. What are these implications? To do justice to this, I have in the studio with me a guest, an expert, who is a businessman and also a policy analyst. His name is Mr. Thompson Bello. Mr. Thompson Bello, welcome to Hot Mic. Thompson Bello is going to be helping us to dissect this conversation. Over the years, I've seen, subsequent government come and go, different administration with their different policies, whether strange, good, bad, and the worst. But I've also seen citizen reactions to some of these policies. When you go on social media, for instance, you see people reacting awkwardly about some of these policies. We cuss out, and it has affected the country as it were, because when people look at social media and see what Nigerians are saying about the government, it kind of creates some kind of negativity and how the government itself responds to people's need. So on this podcast today, we are going to be looking at how some of these negativities have affected the government and its handlers over the years. So I will be calling on Bello Thompson to share his thought on how he can briefly share his experience and how he can advise the government and its handlers on how they can go about negativity and how they can handle negativity when they see one about the policies they introduced.
Thank you very much. My pleasure being here. So you talked about negativity.
Yeah.
And for every negative, there's also a positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think over time, Nigerians, especially those at the grassroots, basically an average Nigerian on the streets, has not been led responsibly enough.
Okay.
Why do I say so? He has not been able to see his counselor, his local government chairman around him.
Okay.
Giving him that sense of responsibility, actions taken too responsible that he, when something happens and he I can trust this person to say, he did this out of genuine sincerity for leadership. But over time, actions has always proven that somehow people in leadership are not sincere to an extent. And that sends a wrong signal back to the citizenry. And you see a situation, for instance, you see a police van, for instance, driving one way, anti-traffic. And you are a sane citizen and you wonder, this is somebody who's supposed to stop you, and is now doing the thing that he's supposed to stop you from doing. Wow. And you see, that automatically sends you a wrong signal. And you don't expect my reaction to be good. You don't expect my reaction to be good. So that negativity bonds naturally from those scenarios. So it is born out of things that are just happening around us. Do you understand? So these things are not, I think at a point, I just want to make reference to some instances. Yeah. Some years ago in Borno State, when the present governor came in, there were some very positive vibes about how his leadership style was.
Okay.
And everything was on the positive. People didn't have negative comments. A lot of positive, because he was taking on the war. He said, when they said there was problem, he said, I'm going there.
Okay.
He was identifying with the people. So you could see the sense of sincerity. And you see, you could barely then hear anybody saying anything negative. So I think those negativity comes out to a result of the happenings around us and how the people feel. It's just like a reaction when you are pushed to the wall, so that reaction, that anger, it's what bets those negative vibes. And I believe it will take time to change, because it's not like something a cup of rice you just put on the fire and boil and it gets soft immediately.
Yeah.
You need time to reorientate the people and show people cause that, this thing has actually changed. Because ordinary, a man on the street has a very wrong impression of leadership in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you for that. That was so succinct. Okay, let's narrow it down to the current administration. Now, we have seen several policies being introduced by this administration, and we have had good ones and bad ones based on how people feel about it, generally. And then today, I listened to the essay to the president on media and public communications, reeling out, several programs and policies that federal government is working on. And one of them is dropping the prices of food, which everybody is complaining about, which is very, relatable to every common man. Then also, it talks about bringing prices of fuel down so that people can, have access to fuel and all that. Then the third one, which is the new tax reform policy, which everybody should feel concerned about. So that particular one, I would like you to help us dissect it. Like use the voice of common man. How do you think that new policies, that tax policies, would impact people? Based on how you feel about it, because I know you have read some documents, you have listened to news, you have also listened to some interviews of technocrats about how these policies can affect the common man, right? So, how do you feel about it? How do you think it will impact the development and socioeconomic growth of the people?
Okay, thank you so much. This current administration has brought in a lot of policies.
Okay.
And I'm going to speaking as somebody who is on the streets.
Okay.
I interact with people daily because of the nature of my business, so I can feel the pulse of the people. The policies are quite fantastic.
Okay.
But you see, when you are developing policies, you look at who is the policy meant for.
Okay.
To an extent, the policy looks illicit in nature because when you talk about tax reforms, it affects those in the corporate, basically.
Okay.
Now, where it affects the common man is the bank, where he has a relationship with the corporate institutions.
Okay.
Like the banks, corporate where he pays bills and all that. So that's where the tax reform comes to the person, the people on the lower cadre. And to be very sincere, as an individual, I believe taxation is part of development in any sane society. But in our own society, today in Nigeria, people don't see that taxation as the major thing they need now. Because I'm just like somebody, like I just want to take like a Musa or Uche that lives around my environment, who used to buy fuel for less than 200 naira about 2 years ago, and now he's buying for about 1,000 naira.
Okay.
And now you are talking about the tax reform.
Yeah.
And Uche is asking me, so what about tax reform? How does it affect me as Uche?
Okay.
Do you understand? But as Thompson sitting here, the tax reform is fantastic.
Okay.
It's necessary for development. It's necessary to take our country forward. But you see, this development, these policies has, a down part over time. Like we said earlier, impression, what the mindset of the people. So now, over time, people have not trusted the processes because it has not always worked for them. People have not always trusted the processes because, like Uche in my area now, if Uche wants to walk into a hospital, which the tax reform is supposed to help improve infrastructure, and Uche in my environment goes to a hospital in Kwale, for instance, and can't get service immediately, or probably the nurse was around, there was no light or something, and then it makes no sense. The tax reform now makes no sense to Uche. I don't get my point. But then, holistically, it is critical that we do these reforms for us to grow as a nation. But then, you made mention of reforms around food price.
Bringing down the price
of fuel.
And fuel too.
On my way here, I just bought fuel. And indeed, I was looking at the pump price to see that has been implemented, but unfortunately, it's not been implemented. I read on the papers for struggling between 860, 890, 9, but I still bought about for 9 something. So that's where the gap is. There's a communication by the essay that this is ongoing, but the people there's a bridge there. So that's where we have the challenge. That's where people, the distrust is coming. You know, as fantastic, government is working so hard to bring this development to place, but I feel like the communication channel, the approach is not I don't know the right word to thank you enough to meet the needs of the people.
Okay, now would I be right to say you are trying to emphasize more on the implementation?
Thank you.
And the people at the grassroots are not helping the implementation to take effect as it should. Because you mentioned that, okay, it has been said in the news, because essay, Mr. Sunday Diary, essay to President of Media and Public Communications mentioned that in particular because the efforts are being put together by the President and his team to make sure things are being done accordingly. I mean, prices of all these things are affordable to people. But people at the grassroots are the one. For instance, I can agree with you. For instance, there was a case of prices of food in the market. Even when the prices of food have come down, you realize that those who are sellers refuse to bring these prices down. And despite the fact that federal government is putting effort in place, the prices still remain the same for this seller, even though they get this thing direct from the farm at cheaper rate. So what do you think can be done? How do you think that can be resolved?
So it's an institutional problem.
Okay.
You cannot give what you don't have.
Okay.
There was a time we had issues of landlords and rents and tenants, and the National Assembly was trying to regulate.
That's another issue. That's another issue of rent.
Exactly.
You know, housing.
So, and the issue is that you cannot regulate an institute on a sector that you don't have infrastructure.
Okay.
You've not put any value to the sector. You can't regulate it. So the same thing with the food price listing. Government, you know what government does most times? Release grains.
Okay.
You know, bulk purchase, reduce tax on importation.
Yeah.
But you see, because the markets are not regulated, the markets are not regulated by government.
Okay.
So it's a free-for-all market. Because, instance, somebody in Lugbe, for instance, in Abuja here, somebody in Lugbe got his shop. Okay. Only God knows how much he paid for the shop. Exactly. And pimped it up, and then he got the substance from wherever he got it, which is not a government source, outsourced his foodstuff and brought it. And now government has implemented something. Okay. Not taking cognizance how he fed his shop and all that. And government now reduced the price of this. He has already gotten something at this rate. You don't expect him to just start implementing government policy. So they need to be an institutional process. Okay. You know, a regulatory process that, this sector, if you want to, if you are selling in this sector, you have to be a part of a group. Okay. So that, when you fall into a group, it's easy to regulate a group, just like the Nigerian Medical Association. Okay. If you allow doctors to just, manifest everywhere, you cannot regulate the sector. But because they're under an umbrella, it's easy to say, every doctor should come here by 12 o'clock. They will come because they're under a regulator. Oh, okay. And now the government is a regulator because they have provided an institution, which is the body, MCD, or the Nigerian Medical Dental Council. So that's government there as a regulator. Okay. And they have put infrastructure there. It's easy to drag anybody who's a player in the sector. Okay. But when you just announce food price drop, and you're actually doing something, not just you just announce. I know that this announcement came with some implementation, probably reduction in tax importation on food or something. Yeah. But you see, at the end of the day, it will not get to the people. Come on, yes, it won't get to the people because government over time, there's no infrastructure to trickle down these policies to the last man standing.
Wow, that's brilliant. So now, are you aware that there is also price regulatory body for market people, business persons? Haven't you heard that there is price control commission where people can go to report when they purchase something with exorbitant prices or outrageous prices, or they are being overcharged for a particular product. I think there is consumer rights group too who attend to people when they are being cheated or they bought substandard product for original and all that, for fake substandard product for original rather. So that's it. So but also I also want you to help us dissect how people can go about these things without being negative, because that's the center of this conversation. All right, We move from negativity, from being against the government policy that's unfavorable, right? We narrow it down to tax reform. We pick one of these policies that affect people more, because tax is always seen as something big. People always feel like, why would they be taxing me when I'm working? People don't know that they pay tax, all right? But what federal government is saying, that those multiple taxation will reduce. With these new tax policies, they want to narrow it down to those who are rich. Okay, the more you buy, the more you consume, the more you pay. Tax. But if you are poor, if you don't have enough, if you are just a middle class people, a middle class person, you will not need to buy much, but you will pay less taxation, right? So we pay tax on VAT, all those things that we buy. Many people don't know. So we narrow it down to tax. Now we narrow it down to how people can help us control the pricing, even when government has reduced the price from their hand. Will people implement it at the grassroots to make it life easier for people? So how can people now handle it when those people are selling these things and are not reducing the price, instead of being negative, instead of heaping all the blame on government? How do you think people can handle that?
So first of all, it's a two-way thing.
Okay.
It's a carrot and stick approach.
Okay.
I just want to put something at the center.
Okay.
It's about responsibility.
Yeah.
It's about responsibility. As a citizen, I use myself as an example.
Okay.
A political office holder,
okay,
who is a leader in my constituent.
Okay.
For instance, now I see him drive 5 cars with 2 bikes or whatever. I'm just giving an instance.
Okay.
And I know the cost of each of those cars, and that car is transporting one person.
Yeah.
And I know that taxpayer money is part of that transport system for one individual who is serving.
Okay.
What do you expect from me, naturally? This is between me and you.
Okay.
So when we talk about citizenry, reaction, negativity, it's as a result of what is seen as acts of irresponsibility
on the part of the administration.
Leadership.
Okay, leadership. Okay.
Across board, not particular across board, from the local government to state to federal. So there's that act of distrust, because the leadership style is not commensurate with. You are saying, I should pay tax, I want to pay the tax, but your lifestyle is not showing that somebody that you're taking from my meager tax. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So then definitely there's going to be outrage. There's that negativity naturally comes. Oh, I pay tax and that's what you're using it for. Oh, I beg, Right. So, so if you want to reduce that, it's just be responsible. Governments should set policies that makes them responsible to the citizenry. And because naturally, when we see, anytime you see a responsible leader, you don't criticize, you applaud him.
Okay.
Because he has done something well.
Exactly.
But once it's on the other side, the outburst, because the stress, the pressure on the economy is already much.
Okay.
So it's negative that you'll get. So I believe that for government to get that right, they need to start by leading responsibly.
All right.
That's what I think.
All right, thank you. I also want to take a deduction for that. So, in that conclusion, I want to pick something now that, okay, if government wants to be responsible, then there will have to be a task force body, or a group of task force that goes about checking if the prices. Okay, for instance, if fuel has come down and some filling stations are refusing to sell, they are refusing to sell at cheaper price to people. Such task force group can handle such stuff. Okay.
If you go to any MRS filling station today, there's queue. Why? Market forces. So if somebody is still selling at that price, you don't need to even pay task force. Market forces will drive him out of the business. So that's the truth. All
right. Thank you so much, Bello Thompson, for coming on our podcast. I really appreciate your presence. Thank you for coming. We hope to see you often and often on this podcast at Hot Mic.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you so very much.
This is where we come to the end of this episode on Hot Mic. Till I come your way again, I remain Dotun Roy. Bye for now.